Welcome to the Red Alert Podcast on Between the Whistles Detroit YouTube page. We are at a crossroads with this Red Wings franchise, with Stevie Y and with Larkin. Now we could sit here and talk to each other about what happens if we sign Larkin to a contract. Obviously people are worried about him taking up a significant cap number, but if you look at his defensive stats, he ranks really high in with centermen in the defensive stats. Obviously his offensive stats haven't been what people would have thought, but I just go on the expectations that when he was drafted, people thought he was going to take over and be Datsuk and Zetterberg from the start. And listen, he's had some good years. He's had some bad years, but this year he's nearly a point per game player. He's got 43 points in 47 games, 15 goals, 28 assists. A couple years ago, last year he had 69 points. He might smash that this year. In 2018, 2019, he had 73 points. This guy has the capabilities of being an elite centerman. But here's where we're at with the Red Wings franchise. Obviously, if Larkin doesn't sign his contract, we have to think about what the Red Wings need to do in order to not get put in a bigger hole. So if Dylan Larkin and Stevie Y can't agree on a contract, Stevie Y has to deal him. Period. End of story. Because I don't care what anybody says, the worst possible situation that could happen to this franchise is Dylan Larkin walking away in free agency for free. I think that would be the biggest mistake, and that would set this rebuild back probably years. And I don't think Stevie Y would see it out. Let's just be honest. Dylan Larkin's a huge part of this rebuild because if you look at the franchise in totality, if you look at the centermen in this, franchise, in the prospect pool, down below in the lineup, you got Veleno, you got Kopp, you got Marco Kasper, who's playing in the SHL, Swedish Elite Hockey League. He's not ready yet. So if you don't sign Dylan Larkin, you're basically conceding that you are not going to be anywhere close in the next 3 to 4 years. Now, if you sign Dylan Larkin and you do this one thing that has been plaguing this team for a long time, it's looking for a legitimate winger. If you're going to sign Dylan Larkin to a massive deal, the one thing that Stevie Y has to do is go get a winger. Period. End of story. We could sit here and talk about the potential that Lucas Raymond has. We could talk about the potential of some of the prospects in the pool. Matter of fact, I love this prospect in Flint. His name's Amadeus Lombardi. I think he's going to be an outstanding player. I think he's going to be a top 6 forward, to be honest. But that's just hope. You hope that guy could be there. The Red Wings would need a legitimate winger in the next year or by next year. Period. And we could talk about everything about the Yzerplan and how we believe in Stevie Y. But the reality of the situation is this. If Dylan Larkin doesn't get that winger on himself, a legitimate winger, he will fall. This franchise won't be the same. Because when you look at the teams that are good in the NHL, they have legitimate wingers. Like if you look at Boston, okay? Boston is obviously the best team in the NHL. They are the best team in the NHL. These are their 4 top wingers. Pavel Zacha, who he's been really decent this year. Taylor Hall on their second line. Brad Marchand and David Pastrnak. You go to Carolina. Andrei Shletnikov is on their second line. You go to Detroit. You know who's on Detroit's second line? Michael Rasmussen and David Perron. Guys, it's that simple. It is literally that simple. And we look at teams in this own division. You look at Tampa Bay. They have Stamkos, Kucherov, Hagel, Killorn. They have a good centerman in Anthony Cirelli. And then they have the ability to mix up Steven Stamkos to go as a centerman on a second line. But here's the thing. A lot of people look at the Dylan Larkin contract and they go, if he gets paid more than 8.5, it's a the Red Wings are going to take advantage of. Well, there's a guy in New York who was recently moved to the winger in his game. Bo Horvat got traded there. It's Matthew Barzal, and he just got a contract for $9.5 million. Matthew Barzal and Dylan Larkin are tied in points. Matthew Barzal is not the defensive player that Dylan Larkin is by far. But if you look at their career, I mean, Matthew Barzal has 354 points in total in 7 years, and Dylan Larkin has 403 and 8. 401 and 8. My bad. It just shows you the discrepancies, and obviously the New York Islanders have been a better team in that time. Because when you look at Matthew Barzal, there was a point where he played with John Tavares, in New York before he bolted to Toronto. But when we look at the Detroit Red Wings and we look at what could happen going down the line, this is absolute crossroad territory right now. If you lose Larkin because you can't get a deal done, you got to trade him. Period. And if you trade him, you're setting to rebuild back 3 to 4 to 5 years. Easily. 3 to 5 years, easily. If he walks, that's a whole different situation. That's basically malfeasance. And honestly, that would be Steve Yzerman's worst mistake that he's ever done. You can't just let him walk for nothing. But I think they will get a deal done in the not too distant future. I think that they're gonna put this behind them. Obviously, I loved what Derek Lalonde said about it's his job to coach and it's Stevie Y's job to be the management. They're not thinking about it, but obviously you would want it done sooner rather than later, and I think they're gonna get it done. But here's the thing: the one thing that has to happen when they re-sign Dylan Larkin is they got to get a legitimate winger, and that is the final thing. And we could talk about everything else, but that's the reality.